Radio Lewes. Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.
Hi, Nick and Hannah McMaster of Brighton-based alt-folk band The Sweet Ordeal, here with a very special episode of Finding Land Folk Show, music from the shores of folk. Welcome.
Whether you are steeped in the genre like me, a toe dipper like Hannah, or joining the journey for the first time, we are delighted that you can join us for an hour or so of traditional and contemporary folk and folk-adjacent music from around the UK and beyond.
I am absolutely delighted, Nick.
With a healthy sprinkling of artists from our own beautiful part of the world in Sussex, we want be druv.
We want in any way be druv. Today's episode tidies up the remaining 9 interviews from last September's brilliant Brighton and Hove Folk Festival, interspersed with the interviewees selecting one of their own tracks to play alongside a chosen track from a band or artist they admire. We also have surprise news at the end of the show featuring one of folk music's emerging stars, selecting some tunes and talking about her upcoming tour. Are you excited, Nick?
I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited to share our exciting news.
Which is funny because you don't normally like sharing, do you? So, in this post-Christmas haze, slump into your favourite chair, find your Yule hole, and let us play you a fantastic selection of folk music. Nick, I think you might need to explain to the viewers what a Yule hole is, because it sounds really filthy.
Well, that says more about your mind than about my knowledge of ancient language. It's 19th century Scottish dialect for the last hole on the belt. So after a big Christmas dinner, you find your Yule hole to allow your belly to express itself, but also to keep your trousers up.
Love it, love it.
Listener, you may remember that we have played previous interviews from the Brighton and Hove Folk Festival, and we've scattered those over a number of episodes in 2022. So we're now continuing with the order of performance at the festival, and we start our interviews with London-based songwriter Sophie Jamieson, who has just released her debut album Choosing on the Bella Union label, which placed on our recent end-of-year Best Album chart. Noting the intimate, visceral quality of her songs, I began by asking if there was power in being able to express oneself through songwriting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I use the process of songwriting to figure out stuff, and I don't always think about the performing element while writing, but usually there's a thread that forms between writing a song that comes from a particular place and then the performing of it, which usually ends up being transforming it and making it something that, yeah, the fact that there's any power in it is pretty. It's always a surprise when it happens, but it usually happens because there's been something very honest in the writing process.
It does come across as very cathartic. Do you find you have to be in a particular headspace to write, or is it when you just start writing when something kind of comes together in your mind, or do you have to park it and find a space to be in it? Because it just does seem so intimate and personal.
I used to come up with ideas and lyrics first all the time and write a lot of lyrics before starting a song, and these days it's all quite different. I've been really enjoying the process of sitting down to write, having no idea what's going to come, and being, again, like surprised by what comes out. It's a kind of like a subconscious thing.
So do you find your songwriting's matured or got better because you've kind of got this different approach now?
I think my songwriting has matured because I respect it more than I did before, and I recognize what it needs, which is usually space and calm, and I'm also more sensitive to how difficult that is to get, and I'm more aware of it than I have been before. And I think it's also matured because of how much music I've listened to over time. I feel like good songwriting comes from listening a lot and not censoring yourself and not stopping yourself from making what's coming, but just letting it letting it happen.
So on that note, you're saying about listening to music. So who or what would you say were your biggest sort of influences with your music?
There's probably like a few key artists that I think of as my favourites, but I'm usually listening to whatever the newest stuff is because that's the way my iTunes app is organised. And it's also influenced by what I'm reading, and at the moment by poetry and memoir. But in terms of musicians, at the moment the artists I have in mind the most are probably like Adrian Lenker, K Tempest and Indigo Spark. But the core ones have usually been like Sharon Van Etten and
Bringing that into a live domain then, what's the power and importance of playing live for you?
It's really important. It's like the thing. I'm in the middle of a tour at the moment, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And as you get tired through that time of playing and pouring your heart out every night, you have to remind yourself why you're doing it, because you get really tired. And it's connecting, it's giving, and to do that you can't be self-conscious or embarrassed, and you also need to be humble. It's interesting, playing different shows every night with different crowds, different venues and different towns. You have to remember that they're like people in the audience, and that they all have their own lives and they're all different from each other, and you don't know what they're taking from your music, but you also have to trust to an extent that you can be giving them something. It's an odd combination of switching off and being aware at the same time. And it's a really fine line, and I feel like I get it wrong most nights, but I'm really looking for the sweet spot where everything goes well.
I think you found the sweet spot today. I really do. What song on our show will we play of yours?
I probably give you a song called The End of the Road, which I did not play today. I haven't played it in a little while. You can play that song. Yeah.
So, a song from another artist or band. Who are we going to play?
You're going to play People's Faces by K Tempest. Yeah, that says it all.
Well, Sophie, thank you. It was a real honour to witness you at work today. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.
I ran to the end of my road, and my heart said no. My legs wanted to go past the lamppost, but my muscles couldn't move my bones. My heart took all of us down to the side of the road. I ran to the end of my road, but I couldn't go. Turned around and walked back home. My legs were stone and my body folded. I couldn't hold it. My heart said, please don't make me do this. I can't hold this head up high enough to run through this. So I run to the end of my road, and my heart let go. My legs wanted to go, so I let them roam, and my muscles took my bones out on a journey. running all throughout my body. I realize I love all those who know me, and maybe I have something to show. So I run to the end of my road. I was full of hope. I waited for my limbs to do that thing they know, but my body folded. I couldn't hold it. My heart said, please don't make me do this. I've got nothing left to hold this head or even walk back home instead.
It's coming to pass. My country's coming apart. The whole thing's becoming such a bumbling farce. Was that a pivotal historical moment we just went stumbling past? Well, here we are, dancing in the rumbling dark. So come a little closer, give me something to grasp. Give me your beautiful, crumbling heart. Another disaster, catharsis, another half-discarded mirage, another mask slips. I face off with the physical, my head's ringing from the love of the stars. There is too much pretense here, and too much depends on the fragile wages and extortionate rents here. We're working every dread day that is given us, feeling like the person people meet really isn't us, like we're gonna buckle underneath the trouble, like any minute now the struggle's gonna finish us. And then we smile at all our friends. It's hard, we got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel you aching. None of this was written in stone. There is nothing we're forbidden to know. And I can feel things changing. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in people's faces. I saw it roaring. I felt it clawing at my clothes like a grieving friend. It said there are no new beginnings until everybody sees that the old ways need to end. But it's hard to accept that we're all one and the same flesh, given the rampant divisions between oppressor and oppressed. But we are, though. More empathy, less greed, more respect. All I've got to say has already been said. I mean, you heard it from yourself when you were lying in your bed and couldn't sleep, thinking, couldn't we be doing this differently? I'm listening to every little whisper in the distance singing hymns, and I can feel things changing, but it's so hard. We got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel your heart racing. None of this was written in stone. The current's fast, but the river moves slow, and I can feel things changing. Even when when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in people's faces. It's not enough to imagine we'll be happy when we've got enough stuff. All this stuff is blocking us. I'm neat with no chaser. I'm all spirit, but I'm sinking. Because these days are not days, but strange symptoms. And this age is our age. But our age is rage sinking to beige. And yes, our children are brave, but their mission is vague. Now, I don't have the answers, but there are still things to say. I stare out at my city on another difficult day, and I scream inwardly, when will this change? I'm beginning to fade, but my sanity's saved, 'cause I can see your faces. My sanity's saved, 'cause I can see your faces. It's hard. We got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel your heart racing. None of this was written in stone. The current's fast, but the river moves slow, and I can feel things changing. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. I love people's faces.
The astonishing K Tempest there with People's Faces from their 2019 Republic Records album, The Book of Traps and Lessons. That was preceded by The End of the Road by our first interviewee, Sophie Jameson, from her 2020 self-released EP, Release.
Both two beautiful songs there. Next up is Jerma Adan, a Haitian folk artist who spent a large part of her life in the US, but is now currently residing in Birmingham. She is known as a storyteller with a strong undercurrent of social consciousness at the heart of her music, which draws upon Haitian, American and global folk influences. Nick began the interview by asking Jerma how a song or album comes about for her.
It can come about from just sitting and reading. I read a lot of poetry, a lot of different types of writing, stories. So I could be reading a story, for example, like that one song I was performing called Their Eyes. I was just reading about the history of women on the island of Haiti, and then the song just came about. The text for my song just pulled itself out of the book, essentially. And then sometimes it's a nature walk, and then it just comes, or conversation with someone.
I love that. I really admire that ability to see that kind of creativity and that potential of creating your own art from whatever's around you. One of the songs I did catch, you said it was based on a Haitian folktale. Was that one of the ones?
It was a harvest song. That's a very traditional folk tune that's been passed on that we still have, called the Harvest Song. It's about just harvesting and celebrating harvest. Yeah.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in Haiti, that's right, and you lived in the US for a while, and you've come over to Birmingham. Someone that's a kind of absorbing place, culture, identity and journeys. How have you absorbed Birmingham?
I've absorbed Birmingham by just going to different activities, events, being around Brummies. If I was just doing music, I wouldn't have much content. The rawness of living, I draw from that to create. It fuels me.
I've read that your upcoming album will feature the Senegalese virtuoso kora player Kadiali Kouyaté, as well as other collaborations. So what are you looking for in collaborations? And that's what a one to have, by the way.
With that collaboration, it's on Spotify. It's called Souvenir. For this album that is slowly emerging somehow, it's influenced by my ancestry. Just the information that we got from it has just been sparking so many questions and further diving into the past and looking for stories as well that we can draw on. So with the Senegalese aspect, that's something that is linked to our ancestry. So I wanted to have him involved in that particular song. And the song itself is based off of a Haitian poem. I wrote the song initially, and I just thought, I think Kor would be really good for this. And Kajali was up for it. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, final questions. We'll play a song of yours on our show. What song are we going to play?
Ooh, yeah, Souveni with Kajali.
Finally, we'll play a song by an artist or band that you admire or inspired by. So what are we going to play there?
Well, I've been listening recently to Angeline Morrison, The Brown Girl, and other folk songs, and I've just loved the rawness of that album.
I am as brown can be. I have eyes as black as snow. I am as brisk as the nightingale, and as wild as the forest doe. My love, ye was so high and proud, and his fortune too so high. He for another fair pretty maid left me and passed me by. He sent to me a love letter, and he sent it from the town, saying no longer that he loved me, because I was so brown. I sent his letter back again, saying his love I valued not, whether he would fancy me or whether he would not. When that 6 months was gone and past, was over, gone and past, oh, then did my love, once so bold, lie sick with love at last. When that 6 months was past and gone, was over, past and gone, oh, then did my love, once so bold, lie on his bed and moan. Oh, then did he send for the doctor man. You doctor must me cure for the pains that now do torture me. I cannot long endure. Oh, never a whit could the doctor man his suffering relieve. Oh, never a one but the brown girl, who could his life reprieve. Oh, then did he send from out the town, oh, then did he send for me, he sent for me the brown girl, who once his wife should be. she had for this poor lovesick man. 'Twas all on a day, on a long summer's day. She would walk, she never ran. Oh, I'll do as much for my true love as any young girl may. I'll dance upon his grave and sing for a 12-month and a day.
We've heard The Brown Girl by friend of the show Angeline Morrison from her 2022 self-released album The Brown Girl and Other Folk Songs, followed by Souvenir, a self-released 2022 single by Jerma Adan featuring Kajai Kuyate. And I really enjoyed them, did you not, Nick? It felt really sort of chilled out listening to that last one.
You're right, Hannah, and you know what? It was like being in a big, bubbly bath of folk.
It'd be a warm bath. You wouldn't feel any chilliness at all. You'd be completely submerged in it, and the bubbles are frothing around you in a beautiful folky lava.
Hannah?
Nick?
If you had to have the tap end...
No, I never have the tap end.
No, but if you had to have the tap end to enable a folk artist to relax at the other end, what folk artist would it be? Who would you like at the other end of your bath? Now, not in a dirty, pervy way. You're going to have a folk artist in your bath, and you've got to let them have the non-tap end. So who's it going to be?
Yes, no, that's fine. Now, I needed to ascertain the swimming cosy thing, because obviously, if we're naked in the bath together, that's that gets a whole other layer of subtext there. Okay, no, if I had to choose, if I had to sacrifice the nice end and have the tap end, I'd go into the bath with Eliza Carthy. I reckon we could have a good old laugh, and I'd like to have a good old sort of bubbly folk chat with her in there.
Do you know what? I was going to pick Eliza as well, so Eliza, if this doesn't sound too weird, the next time you meet up, do you fancy having a bath with me and Hannah? And you don't have to have the tap end.
No, we'll take the tap end.
You've heard it here first, listener. You've heard it here first.
Absolutely.
That'll be us ghosted from now on then. Or weirdly, if she went, yeah, I'm up for it, I don't know which is more worrying.
The ball's in Eliza's court now.
Well, they will be if we're not wearing a swimming costume. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Rachel Dadd is a wildly creative songwriter and musician based in Bristol who regularly collaborates with This Is the Kits, Kate Stables and Rosie Plain, and has played at a variety of UK music festivals, including Glastonbury, End of the Road, Green Man and Truck. She's been busy, hasn't she? She is also the second of our Brighton and Hove Folk Festival interviewees to make an appearance on our end of the year Best Album chart. This is for Kaleidoscope on the Memphis Industries record label.
Dad's music has changed over the years, starting from a quite stripped-back folk sound to then developing into a much bigger and broader genre-crossing palette. I kicked off her interview by asking her how this had happened.
I love to collaborate with other people, so I did the solo thing and toured as a solo artist, which gave me a lot of joy and connection to my audiences. But then bit by bit I started to collaborate with other musicians, some Brighton musicians, so Emma Gatchell and Marcus Hamblett, who live in Brighton. They were like some of the first friends that I made through this project. And then that just grew, and now it just brings me so much joy to collaborate on a personal level, just the friendships that it brings, the connection that it brings. And then on a musical level, there's infinite possibilities. I play with like such amazing musicians, and to write and arrange and sort of innovate together is really joyful and free. There's a great like freedom in that, and I never preempt the sound. I don't go in like saying I want it to sound like this and that. And the sound is constantly evolving.
From what you're saying, you allow them kind of really in to work with you.
Yeah, I mean, I come with the songs pretty written, but then we often end up deciding on the song structure together, and that comes through the energy flow, because the song structure the song builds and falls in the right natural way. So sometimes the way I've written it at home is not necessarily the right way. But yeah, it's a bit like a flow of energy, and that happens very much collaboratively. Yeah.
And to be fair, watching your set, I really felt that energy in your set. That last song you did was wonderful, with the piano and building it up. Just so good. It's really there. I can really feel it. It's real tangible.
You did have a real kind of presence. What's the importance for you in playing live? What does it bring for you?
It's a really wonderful... Well, when it goes well, it doesn't always go well. But when it goes well, it's a really unmatched experience, uncomparable, because you're just so in the moment, and you're in the moment with people.
And do you kind of have it half in mind in a way that the song's going to be performed live, and does that actually take part in any of the early creative process about how it might project? Because you do seem really in the moment. It does seem really important to play live. Is there any element of that?
I don't really plan, to be honest. It just sort of comes and it sort of happens, and it's a feeling, and it's like, you know, you follow a feeling. So when I'm writing, I'm following a feeling, and when I'm playing live, I'm following a feeling. So I only know that feeling when I'm in it and when I'm doing it. Like, I don't really sit down and write and plan. I don't really make notes to plan how things are going to unfold and be.
And when you're following the feeling, is it more likely a lyric or a phrase comes first, or a melody, or does it vary?
Yeah, usually I'll just tinker around with an instrument, and then that will give my imagination something to work with, an image, and then the words can be structured around that image. But sometimes I just start to play and sing, and something will come out of my mouth without me engaging my conscious mind. And that thing is often quite profound and teaches me something. I'm like, oh, I don't know where that came from, but that's what this song's about then. Okay, great.
Yeah, where do you start with your songs? What's your influence, so to speak?
It's on an emotional level, definitely. So I tend to just write songs when I've got something that I need to express. And that's nearly always, an emotion attached to a thought, feeling, space, place. I don't know. It's for me, music's an incredibly emotional thing.
In your songwriting, do you write on the guitar or do you write on the piano? Because you play both. Do you use one as a particular start for your writing and then you move on, or do you switch between the two?
Oh yeah, I switch between the two. I've just had a guitar writing flurry lately, but before that I had quite a lengthy piano flurry. So it just depends, yeah. And
it could take you in different directions depending on the instrument.
Yeah, very different actually. Yeah, the way I write and structure songs on the piano is really different. Yeah.
So, speaking of songs, we're going to play one of your songs on our show accompanying this interview. What song of yours are we going to play?
And Footsteps is a song that I wrote on the piano during the lockdown. And that was a song that came from spending a lot of time with my children, gallivanting around outside a lot.
Excellent. And we're also going to play a song by a band or artist you admire or inspired by. Who are we going to play?
Let's go for Sophie Jameson, who I just got very inspired by today. I loved her set. It was wonderful, wasn't it? Yeah, you really, really loved it. And I love that new single that's just come out.
You're staring at me, another afternoon on the beach with my head stuck in the sea. I'm not here to see you, I just wanna be. Will you stop looking at me? You're planning something bad for the moment. My heart lands in the sand. Whiskey, don't be like that. Island life, it seems the perfect horizon, the thirst and the heat, all the beautiful things it takes for eyes to see. You've been so good to me, my coat, my gown, my dark feather down. I just need you to rock me to sleep. I
Sophie Jameson again, this time with Sync, the lead single from her 2022 album Choosing, followed by Rachel Dadd and Footsteps. Now, one of the unique things about the Brighton and Hove Folk Festival is festival promoter Folk Room's use of an artist to sketch the acts as they perform on the main stage. And it's just not any old artist, Nick. It's not like they've just sort of found you and asked you to do some sketches while the singers sing. You know what I mean? They've got a proper artist.
Fair point.
So for the last number of years, they've used the uber-talented Chris Riddell, a South African-born British illustrator, former children's laureate, and, perhaps as he is best known, political cartoonist for The Observer. Nick began by asking Chris how he got involved with Folk Room.
And it's worth saying, it's not in this part of the audio, but he was drawing me whilst I was interviewing him.
I think I started drawing on social media. So I would put on a track and draw something and just use my phone camera and sort of photograph that. And Stephen from Folk Room saw one of these and he just got in touch and said, would you like to come down to the folk club and draw while the acts play? And I said, yeah, great. And I've done it ever since. And it's a really lovely experience. It's very relaxing drawing to music. And I love folk music because it tells stories. And as an illustrator, I love stories. You know, that's my medium, interpreting stories visually. And when you've got fantastic music accompanying it, it becomes such a pleasure.
Do you feel you have some synergy with the acts playing live and you actually drawing live? Do you feel you get kind of the same buzz as a musician?
Well, something happens sometimes where there's a rhythmic passage in the music, or it goes very quiet, or it speeds up, and I find myself drawing along in time. Not necessarily intentionally, but after a while, you know, my pen becomes my rhythm section. I start to sort of scribble or draw very delicately, depending on how the music is going. And I think that feels like a performance. And as an illustrator, most of my life is spent in a studio at the bottom of my garden. You know, so I'm a hermit. I don't get out much. And so it's lovely to come out once in a while and have an audience and actually draw in front of an audience.
And it is absolutely wonderful watching it. And I, from what you were saying about the speed of your drawing, I really noticed that because I've been sitting down watching a lot of what you've been doing, and you can really see it. It reflects what you're listening to, and it just adds that extra element to the song. I feel it makes the stories richer. It makes them come to life even more. I don't know, I'd never even thought of watching someone draw to music, and it's so lovely.
Now that's quite a common reaction. And quite frankly, I don't know why more illustrators don't do this, because it's really good fun to do. The other thing it does, which I find when I sort of go to a gig, there's a lovely introduction, or maybe a band goes straight into a song, and you don't always get the title. And so I'm there, I can sort of write down the title so people get a set list, you know, visually, as they go through the gig.
Just to describe to listeners, what happens is Chris may draw the artist performing, but then after that, subsequently will illustrate a song as it's being played within the time of the song and complete the drawing. It's amazing. And do you find that artists say, look at your images and go, that's a really interesting interpretation of the song I've made?
Sometimes. I mean, part of the fun, I think, is to interpret it in one's own way. And as an illustrator, one does this all the time. I find I illustrate a lot of poetry as well and work with a lot of poets. And it can be a similar experience as well, where someone might be using a certain type of imagery and you can come at it from a slightly different place and give it another dimension. So I work as a political cartoonist as well. I use metaphors all the time. So sometimes one can draw a very large elephant in a room, you know, when someone's singing a beautiful song about something else, you know, and it'll get a reaction.
And what I like about your drawings as well, you make everyone look a lot more attractive than they are, or at least in my case here. If you could pick a song to play by an artist, what song would that be? And we'll put that on our show.
I think it would be Last of the Melting Snow by the Leisure Society. And the very first time I did this sort of thing, drawing to music, it was with the Leisure Society. And just recently after lockdown, we played a lovely show at the Union Chapel up in London. And it was after a long time sort of being apart, and we all got together, and I was able to sort of sit on stage with the Leisure Society and draw their songs. So then that would be my choice.
Wait all year for the parting shot, for the epilogue, for the moment when it stops and the days fade away. In no doubt, as I leave this town, I will not return, for I haven't got the room in my head for these things. And America seems an awful long way to go as we hide ourselves in the last of the melting snow. So we find in the fading light of the winter time that there's nothing left to try. All is best left unsaid. And America seems an awful long way to go as we hide ourselves in the last of the melting snow. In the last of the melting snow. In the last of the melting snow.
The beautiful The Last of the Melting Snow by the Leisure Society, the folk-inflected chamber pop project founded by Nick Hemming and Christian Hardy. That was from their 2009 album, The Sleeper, and a product of the Ego Drain.
Oh, what's an ego drain?
I think maybe that's the plug hole in the bath we were having earlier with Eliza Carthy. You are listening to Finding Land Folk Show on Radio Lewes, where music matters. If you have saved a few pennies from not having your heating on and would like to support the show, you can help cover production costs by donating via Buy Me a Coffee and get some brilliant rewards. Check out our Finding Land Linktree account for more details.
We maybe offer the bath as a reward.
Oh, God, what have we started?
Brighton's Memorial is a two-piece alt-folk band consisting of songwriters Jack Watts and Oliver Spalding, whose inspirations include such classic storytellers as Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan and Gene Clark. Noting that duos are possibly the most intense combination in music, Nick began by asking Memorial how they create such tender music together.
I think with lockdown, that kind of helped us out massively because we became a band just before everything locked down. And so during that period of time, it gave us a lot of time just to really get in touch with ourselves, get in touch with what we're doing and really work on our harmonies as well. I think we watched that Milk Carton Kids live at Lincoln Theatre and we absolutely rinsed it. But I think just seeing the way that they perform and how close and effortless that seemed, we knew that we had to work really, really hard. Like, it was more of a parameter.
There was already something naturally there, but we just realised that we had to work even harder at it to make it like something amazing rather than something just cool, you know. That's like average.
When you first met, how did you realise that your voices were just going to work?
It was kind of by chance because we met at uni and we've been friends for like almost 10 years now. But only started writing music about 3 years ago.
We were just messing around, weren't we? And our friends were like, this actually is really good. So we just did it. And that's kind of what happened. That is literally how it happened.
How does your creative songwriting process happen? What's your kind of partnership in that?
It started from just having a really weird year. Like, we had a lot of stuff go on. And we moved apart as well. So whenever we came up to meet each other, we'd talk about all that sort of stuff. And so when it was coming to writing songs, we were just like, this needs to go into our songwriting. Like, we were just starting out, so we were just like, this could be the first one sort of thing. But then in doing that, we ended up talking a lot deeper than we did as just friends rather than as songwriters, because it was like we wanted to get to the deepest part of the song. So we had to get to the deepest part of what we were both feeling. And I think being friends has really helped naturally in writing more honest songs and becoming closer as well.
Also having two people involved just really helps. Like, if you're on the same level and there's no immense egos battling each other, it just makes the songs better. So I think that's kind of the way that it's worked out so well.
I think when a friend is sort of in that scenario, they can't see how the situation looks from the outside, whereas a friend that is very close and understands how the other person thinks might be able to see it differently, and that within a song is kind of interesting to have those two perspectives.
I love that. I want to be your friend now. I think I'd mess up the dynamic. You've got such a wonderful dynamic. It's so lovely to see and lovely hearing you talking about that.
So do you kind of share the songwriting process? Is it kind of very even?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all even, apart from there will be some random songs that we write alone, and we both respect that and we enjoy it because we don't have to do much and it's nice to listen to. But most of the time we just work at stuff together because two brains are better than one brain, I suppose.
If we were to play one of your songs on our show, which we will do, which song is it going to be?
Old Oaks is a good one.
What's the reason for that one?
It's it's about family. I usually say daddy issues, but it's just about kind of seeing your parents as more as people rather than as totems of what you should be.
We're also going to play a song by an artist or band that you admire or inspired by, and so who's that going to be?
Some Misunderstanding, Gene Clark.
Yeah.
We've just heard the legendary Gene Clark and his 1974 track, Some Misunderstanding, the choice of our interviewee, Memorial, who preceded the former Bird singer with Old Oaks from their eponymously titled 2022 album on Real Kind Records. As seen on BBC Introducing, our next guests, the People Verses, borrow from a variety of genres and traditions. Their combined voices and instrumental lines swoop, circle and support the beguiling voice and personality of lead singer Alice Edwards. Each song is taut with feeling and longing, with many inspired by Greek myth and talks from Shakespeare. They have performed at festivals across the UK, including the legendary Cambridge Folk Festival, and I enjoyed them so much I bought the T-shirt.
Speaking to Jack and Alice from the band, after witnessing an energetic set that gloriously veered from indie folk to new wave, I asked how important playing live was.
Live at the start was always one of our strengths, and it was kind of hard to translate it into not live. So we've tried to keep that, because for us, if it's not working live, it shouldn't go on the record yet. So we use live a lot to sort of really put things together and really clean them up. But no, we have a lot of fun and we like each other, which helps.
Yeah. And when we're writing, we're not just writing to write what we write. We're writing because we want to have fun. And when you're live, you're writing because you want other people to have fun, which obviously is going to come across when you're then playing it, because you want people to sort of enjoy the mood, enjoy the evening, and it becomes this experience that you're all in together.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting an impression from your artwork and your name. You're quite inspired by myths, history, and specifically ancient history. Am I right in that?
Yes. So I studied sculpture at uni, and I was always quite interested in, the classics, I mean, it starts from, you go to a museum, the things that interested me were often sculptures of ancient Greek myths, because that's what they built statues of, and that's what the Romans copied. But then also I really liked Hercules and the Disney TV series that they had as a kid, and that was something that my sister and I could share together. And then I also have a love of just storytelling in general and history. So then when you think about some of the world's greatest stories, what better test for what makes a good story than the test of time? So a lot of the time, the longer a story has persisted, it means actually the more relevant it is to general human experience, and therefore the more that everyone's going to relate to it. So when you find a really ancient story that people are still telling and people still find it important, there's a lot to sort of dig your teeth into that will make a good poem if it was originally a poem, will make a good song if you want to translate it into song.
Sometimes you just want to hear about Zeus having sex with a swan.
That's going to be clipped. Top of the show. What's your creative process for developing songs? You talked about the kind of practical part of the live experience, then hone it down. And you've talked a little bit about subject matter. But how does the song gestate? Is it some phrases or words in your mind or a melody?
It really depends. So half of the time Jack will say, I've got this guitar part, I think, there's legs to this, where can we take it? But then I'll be consistently writing poems. And the fun thing about a poem is that it becomes lyrics if you just repeat some of it. Then I have this sort of bank of poems going back to when I was sort of 13 and writing bad poetry to now when I'm writing good poetry. And if he comes up with a vibe, I can sort of scroll through and find something. Or we've been playing about with some more spontaneous prompt work. So one of our songs, Charybdis, that came from when I'd stayed over Jack's house one time, and he was like, okay, well, here's a vibe. How about a prompt? And he just said, shyer. And I was like, oh, shyer as in you're feeling shyer than you were yesterday? Or Hobbit shyer? And he was like, oh, anything you wish. He just played over this chorus lick. And then about 20 minutes later, we were like, okay, this is something. And it can be very sort of spontaneous, but often amalgamations of previous thoughts that kind of simmer.
And Jack, do you kind of have tunes and melodies swilling around your head? How does your sort of creativity start?
I'm quite lucky in that I've got two elements. I've got the fact that Alice is lovingly very critical, which means that if I come up with something which isn't quite good enough, God, do I know it. The difference is, which is really nice, is that I sort of have a bit of a record player in my head and you just put the needle down sometimes. Music's always happening, which means I'm not great at concentrating, but you put the needle down and you go, oh, that's actually quite nice. And the process is, I play it, I say to my dad, hey, who have I ripped this off of? And he'll go, no, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, never heard of them, so no one has either. Great, yes. I'll keep that. Or if he says, Pink Floyd, I'll go, right, I'll try something else.
I have that test as well. There was one time I literally woke up with a whole song, and I said, Dad, these are the words, this is the kind of tune, have I stolen this? And he was like, don't think you have. But yeah, and we spent about half an hour Googling, and he was like, no, I think that one's yours, Chuck. And I was like, great, it's mine, free song, I'll take it.
It's like Paul McCartney in Yesterday then, because that's the famous thing, isn't it? You know, he kept going round for weeks going, whose is this, whose is this?
He didn't have Google either, did he?
Yeah.
So
It was easier to get away with that.
We now give you the opportunity to play a song on our show. So if we played one of your songs, what would it be?
Let's play Ocean Family, the latest single. Hope you like it.
I'm sure we will. And give us a band or an artist you're inspired by or admire, and we'll play that as well.
Oh, I'm going to say Everything, Everything and Peaks.
So they came one by one, there was never any warning. Bled out the stuck pig fields like it was gonna last long. And I saw the whole rise, I saw the whole thing fall. fortunate. I'm left holding my head, looking down at every grave, and all millennia past just a flicker in a way. And I've seen more villages burn than animals born. I've seen more towers come down than children grow. Cross the peaks, cross the marsh, cross your fingers for the last time, and pass out the blame to someone and never step it up. Son, nobody's asking, why is your head bent down? Son, there's trillions lost, I'm dreaming of a different time. I'm left holding my head, looking down at every grave, and all millennia past just a flicker in a way. And I've seen more villages burn than animals born. I've seen more towers come down than children grow. I've seen all my soul back and forth across the globe, and try all manner of things just to keep it on the road. And I've seen more criminals than innocents walk. I've seen more horrors made real and dreamers wake up.
That was Peaks by critically acclaimed Mancunian art rock band Everything Everything from their 2013 Sony Music album Arc. Preceding that was The People Versus with their 2022 self-release single Ocean Family.
You are listening to a special episode of Finding Land Folk Show with interviews from last September's Brighton and Hove Folk Festival. Our penultimate interviewee is the supremely talented instrumentalist Gwennifer Raymond, a self-described guitar convincer, banjo thummer and Welsh primitive musician. As such a technically gifted artist, Nick started by asking Gwennifer about her guitar playing technique.
So I play alternating thumb. I do play banjo, and I do play banjo in clawhammer style. Clawhammer style is quite distinct from alternating thumb. Alternating thumb and guitar, it comes from kind of originally sort of pre-war blues players. You get guys like Mississippi John Hurt, and it's to do with basically you create a sort of drone effect with your thumb, playing typically, not always, but very, very often octaves on the lower notes of the guitar, and you accompany yourself with melody on the higher notes with your fingers, and it will kind of often creates the effect of more than one guitar.
How do you keep that energy up actually whilst you're playing? Because you do very long, extended pieces, and to maintain that.
I mean, partially it's just practice, right? I've been doing it quite a long time. I mean, I do remember when I started doing the style, I'd get knackered after one song, and you'd kind of have to try and sort of pair slower songs. But after a while, there's a certain level of just, it's like running marathons, right? You just sort of get used to it. Also, I came out of punk. I mean, I was a punk drummer for a very long time, so there's a certain amount of kind of energy that comes from, I guess, from that basis.
Built up your stamina over many, many years of both punk drumming and practice. I also noticed when I was watching you play with your shoes off. Is that a thing that sort of helps with the music or helps with the freedom of expression?
There's a disgusting reason for that. So I'm naturally quite a sweaty person, and so I play with finger picks because that lets you play faster and it gives you a certain a clack on the strings. I like that. I like the sound of the finger picks. The problem is that when you get sweaty, they fall off. And so I've got lots of methods to deal with this. I use a thing called gorilla snot, which is actually a drummer thing, which is like a stick grip, but I coat the inside of my picks with it. But additionally, to stop myself from sweating, I take my shoes off. Because that's what you cool down around when you take your shoes off.
But I've read that you feel that landscape does a lot to shape a community's folk music. So how does your childhood in Wales kind of relate to that?
Well, I mean, I grew up in like sort of kind of mountainous area. I grew up underneath the Garth Mountain, for which my second album is named. And I still, hang out with my mates around these sort of dark fir tree forests, quite creepy, and I feel like that imbued, Welsh folklore with a sort of kind of gothic, almost cheekiness. There's a lot about overcoming some sort of oppressor, often the devil, often the English. Let's not talk about that. And so in a sense, there's a certain haughtiness to I think the Welsh attitude, which comes from the oppression of the landscape. It's raining a lot. And also the historic political landscape that forms it. So all of that stuff, I think, it kind of comes to a point, right, in Welsh folklore I'm playing.
But now you're living in Brighton, is that right? And so you're surrounded now by the very gentle South Downs. How does that landscape come into play, if it does at all?
I mean, I love the South Downs and I go there quite often, but I think now it's become more of like, my playing has become city primitive. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of players play sort of pastoral, fieldsy, like beautiful green fields as far as the eye can see, sort of rolling over the landscape, versus I live in especially during my second album, I live in a basement flat in the centre of a city during COVID. So I think it's got that janky city living landscape style. So it's all the things together. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I like that kind of idea of city living in folk music, because that's where a lot of people live now.
And so what did you listen to when you were a child then? When did you first started sort of listening to the music, America and the kind of Appalachian stuff and the blues? When did you start listening to that?
My sort of, I guess, origin story is that I was a little kid and I was about 8 years old, no interest in music at all. So I had this little cassette Walkman thing. My mum gives me, when I'm 8 or 9, a copy of Nirvana, Nevermind. And I go, shit, man, this is pretty good. This is the first music I hear that I like. And I distinctly remember like putting on my headphones on repeat, running up and down the stairs, probably for like several hours a day, annoying my parents. And that was kind of the thing for a long time. Yeah, I was like playing in grunge bands and punk bands, because as a direct result of like, basically I got into heavy, weird, noisy guitar music. But also like my parents were pretty into your kind of Greenwich Village 70s, 60s stuff, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Velvet Underground, and I liked that too. And I kind of realised that a common influence between these two genres that seemed kind of disparate was that they both referenced early pre-war blues music. Especially Nirvana do that cover of Lead Belly. Well, it's not Lead Belly, but yeah, everyone knows the Lead Belly version. Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Or Black Girl on Unplugged. So I kind of got into that, and I started digging out records of that sort of stuff, which is where I discovered the alternating thumb thing. Yeah, and then from there I got into kind of more Appalachian stuff, your Roscoe Holcomb, your Doc Boggs, all that kind of stuff. And I started playing that. And actually, I started playing my style because I can't sing at all. So my backup task was, well, let's make little instrumentals in this sort of blues style. Ooh, look at this. And I found this dude who was a teacher to try and teach me, even though I've been playing stuff like 10, 15 years at that point. Oh, can you show me how to play this style? And he was like, oh, okay. So he showed me the style, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I started playing, I've written these songs. He's like, oh, this sounds like a bit like this guy, John Fay. I was like, who the fuck is John Fay? And he plays me it. And I go, oh, apparently this is a thing that people care about. This is kind of sick. I think I might try to start doing this sort of stuff. And yeah, it sort of came from there.
We're going to play one of your songs on our show. So which song will we be playing?
You fucking put me on the spot here, haven't you, mate? Yeah, Hell for Sir. That's good. A song about trains and also about going to hell. So, either way.
Excellent. I'm going to put you on the spot again. A song we're playing by an artist or band that you admire or are inspired by.
Shit. I would do... Let's do Pygmy by Blind Boy Fuller.
The day to day, something I do crave. Now pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave. Ash to ashes and dust to dust, show me a woman that a man can trust. Pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave. I mean it, something I do crave. Now pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave. Yeah. Pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave. Had a little gal, she was little and low. She used to let me shake it, but she won't no more. Pig meat taking the day to day, something I do crave. I mean it, something I do crave. Play it for me now. Oh, they're taking the day. You know that's something I crave. Yeah. Now pig meat taking the day to day, something I do crave. Now pig meat taking the day to day, something I do crave. Look down that road for it I could see. The boys had my woman and the blues had me. Pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave. I mean it, something I do crave. Yeah. Something I do crave. Now pig meat's taking the day to day, something I do crave. Ash to edges and sand to sand, show me a woman ain't got a back door man. Pig meat is taking the day to day, something I do crave.
heard American blues guitarist and singer Blind Boy Fuller with I Crave My Pigmeat, followed by Gwyneth Raymond and Hell for Certain from her 2020 Tompkins Square album Strange Lights Over Garth Mountain.
Hannah?
Nick?
If you were blind girl Hannah, you would write a song called I Crave My Tofu.
I definitely would, because I do often crave tofu.
Our final artist interview was with headliners Martin and Eliza Carthy from one of the most preeminent folk dynasties these Isles have ever produced.
Absolutely.
Martin Carthy is one of the most influential musicians in British folk. He has released more than 40 albums as a solo artist, a member of Steel Eye Span and the Albion Country Band, in collaboration with the late fiddle player Dave Swarbrick, and with his wife and daughter as Waterson Carthy. In 2014, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the BBC Radio 2 Folk Awards. He was named arguably the greatest English folk song performer, writer, collector and editor of them all by Q magazine, and inspired peers such as Bob Dylan and Paul Simon.
Wow, I mean, that's quite a resume, isn't it?
Not bad at all.
Describing herself simply as a modern English musician, Martin's daughter Eliza Carthy is one of the most recognisable faces in British folk. She has received an MBE, numerous BBC Radio 2 Folk Awards, 2 Mercury Prize nominations, was the first English traditional musician to be nominated for a BBC Radio 3 Award for World Music, and in 2021 became president of the English Folk Dance and Song Society. Wow. Again, quite a resume, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we're making her have a bath with us.
Poor woman. Launching head-on into the UK folk scene in the early 90s, she quickly became one of its great innovators and artistically has rarely stood still.
Battling back my nerves, I asked Eliza about the importance of her playing live.
It's my job. No, it's important to get out there. I'm a very reactive person and I enjoy looking people in the reds of their eyes, you know, and I enjoy connecting with audiences. I also enjoy playing with other people. So when playing with Dad, it's obviously a very family-orientated experience. You know, when I'm playing with my band, it's obviously a big friendship thing as well. So it's basically how I express myself. I find it actually quite hard to play at home these days. I very much want to be in amongst it, you know.
So COVID then must have been an absolute nightmare.
It was a horror for me, and also because of the Wayward Band crisis before that, I hadn't actually done that much live work for a good 18 months before COVID as well. So by the end of lockdown 3, I was pretty much gnawing my arms to the elbows, you know, ready to go.
And how did it feel to do that first live show after?
Well, actually, the first live show we did after that was Brighton. We did the Brighton Festival. It was 2021, wasn't it? Yeah, we played at the Dome to a much reduced audience and a socially distanced audience. There was all kinds of rules and stuff that we had to follow. But for the fact that it was a 30% sized crowd, they made a 300% impression on us and us on them as well. It was just glorious. It was like a feeling of love and reflection and happiness to be back and a real release for everybody in the room. And it was tangible, you know, properly tangible.
And same really to you, Martin. What's the importance of playing live for you? And you can also say that's where you get paid.
Well, it is, but there is nothing like playing live. There is absolutely nothing like it, like connecting with an audience. And I really realised it when I'd just done 3 sensational gigs in Norway, which in itself was a revelation because I'd been there in the 1980s, I think, and I'd had a really miserable time because all the journeys were huge because, you know, the one gig was on that side of the fjord and the next night you're doing a gig on that side of the fjord. But to get there, you've got to drive all the way along there and then all the way back. Well, in the intervening years, Norway spent a phenomenal amount of money building. So I did these 3 gigs and I just came back walking on air. I just had a fabulous time and my audience was mostly musicians who were really nosy. And I love that. I really do love that, being cross-questioned. Why do you do that? You know, and I try and explain it. It don't really matter. It sounds great. Thank you very much. You know, that's how I feel about it. But I had a wonderful time, and I came back and the phone rang, picked up the phone, all your gigs are gone. Beginning of March in 2020, and everything went. So I walked around our house carrying my guitar for 6 months and got one gig 7 months after March. There was one gig coming up, and a month before it I thought, I better do a bit of practice here, because I'd been walking around the house carrying the guitar and not playing at all. I mean, it's out of its case, and hey, my friend, we're still together, ha 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 ha. And I just sat down to try and play a few songs, and I got through the first verse, a piece of cake, and here's the second verse. Couldn't remember it. So I actually had to cobble together a set where I could remember all the words. And then I did the gig, and it was at the Hackney Round Chapels, 2,000-seater, and there were 120 people in the room, all socially distanced,
Now, both of you've got such long careers under your belts now, and you've talked about you've collaborated over the years, and also, obviously, you've performed in various familial conglomerations. Is that the word? Yeah. Combinations, that's the word. What's the power behind actually playing as a family? Is there any difference?
Oh, definitely. It's to do with, I think it's to do with speech inflections, because you know each other so well. And trust or distrust. Like, I know when you're going to get it wrong.
What your mum used to do, all of a sudden, she'd introduce a variation in the middle of a song that nobody had ever dreamed of. She would introduce it and everybody would go, what the hell, what's going on? But just dive, never stop, just keep going, make it work. And the next time you do it, that new variation will come in, and you then start to make it work. And there's nothing like it. It's really exciting because you know each other that well. You know what she's going to do. You know what he's going to do.
Has there been any difference to kind of your creative process when you first started to how you make music now?
Well, when we first started, I was a kid, so yeah, I've changed a lot. Well, when I first started singing together with my mum, I was 13. So did my first gigs with my mum and my auntie Lal and my cousin Mary when I was 13. Then I joined the Watersons when Lal dropped out for a US tour. And after that, we formed Waterson Carthy with me and Mum and Dad. And around about that time, I started playing independently with other people. So my approach changed through that as well. And I suddenly realised that throwing those kinds of spanners in the works to people that you aren't related to just made them really angry.
I'd just like to add something. She says 13, I say 6, because I remember the first time she sang with us. I remember it because we sang first of all in this little room, and you got up and you sang a couple of songs, and we thought, oh, that's wonderful, sang with us, And she said, tonight I'm going to. Well, how long are we doing tonight? We're doing about an hour, but I'm coming on stage too. No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll call you up. And she said, no. In fact, we argued a bit, and finally I said, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. She was like that big. And I said, okay, what will happen is we'll go on the stage, you and I will hold hands. If you know the song, and I'll pick you up, stick you on my hip, and we'll sing the song. The first song, I picked her up, stuck her on my hip, and we sang the song. It was Country Life. You always used to start with Country Life, and we sang that, and she sang it all the way through.
So we actually have it here first that actually you started when you were 6, so that's a new revelation. Have you noticed any kind of changes in the folk scene over the period you've been playing, especially Martin? I mean, long career. What would you say the difference is between when you first started and now?
It's much better for a start. People have learned the songs. People can actually have learned how to make up their own harmonies, how to sing together. And you end up now with the Wilsons, who are the greatest unison group I've ever heard.
And for you, Eliza, what have you noticed? What change have you noticed in the folk scene since you started?
When I first got involved, it was kind of the late 80s, and the folk clubs were really suffering, and there seemed to be a huge age gap between where it totally skipped a generation. Basically, there was a generation that really got overlooked, and that was the punk generation, definitely. And, you know, people like Billy Connolly and Jasper Carrott and Mike Harding to a certain extent. And then the generation after that, people like Roger Wilson and Chris Wood and everything, didn't find their feet for years, really, until the Art Centre circuit started to kick in. I think with the punks, with people like Billy Bragg, for instance, I think the folk scene just was quite suspicious of them and quite protective. And to a certain extent, you can't blame them, you know, because they built this thing from scratch and they weren't sure what these people were going to do to it or with it, you know. So I think they, by and large, learned their lessons. And I've got very little bad to say about the folk clubs because they are volunteers. So there is that inherent tension between professional traditional musicians and the folk clubs and the volunteers that run those kinds of things. Volunteers that run festivals, you know, people that have day jobs, actually, you know, employing a whole load of people that they're supposed to take care of, you know. So I do get the inherent tension in there. Well, so that there is a professional tier now of people who are only professional, which I think is a big difference. The standard is a lot higher, but I'm not sure that the soul is much changed or much improved or anything like that, you know. There's a lot of flash out there, but then young people tend to do that. I mean, you used to do that. He used to be a bit of a gunslinger, this one, you know. So I don't think that's changed very much. There's a lot more opportunities to learn. Obviously, technology has brought about a lot of opportunities. And then there's also things like the courses that you can do, the degree courses at Newcastle and at Sheffield Hallam and places like that. So there's a lot more opportunities to pass music around. It's a lot less sort of back rooms. Oh, have you heard such and such? Because all of the material is available.
Yeah, I think that the punks really liked us.
Well, they did. I know
they loved it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Pistols and Joe Strummer. They loved us.
I think also punk has folk roots, not in terms of musicality, but in terms of singing about lives and singing about what's going on a street level.
It's the DIY aspect
yes,
as well.
Absolutely. I think there was a huge similarity between the punks and skiffle. It was exactly the same notion behind it. Everybody was. There were people who go, "You're just rubbish, you are," and they were turning around and saying, "You just don't get it. God, piss off." That's what we used to do, you know. We used to have these people come. You're just rubbish. I mean, you just go. They just don't get it.
So we're going to play. This is going to be really hard. The amount of songs under your belt. We're going to play one song of yours on our show. What song is that going to be?
You could play Waters and Carthy's Bold Doherty. We've just recently put that back in the set as a little nod to me mum, you know.
Is it tonight?
We are doing it tonight, yeah.
Fantastic. And I'll give you a song each on this one. We'll play a song by a musician or band that you admire or inspired by.
Well, I was actually just listening to the 35... Was it 35? Yeah, the 35th anniversary album of La Bottine Souriante from Quebec. And it's called, you could play track 2 off that. I can't remember what it's called, but the album's called L'Appellation Contrôlée. And it's really, really good.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. And Martin?
What would I do?
That's going to be a big Rolodex.
There's a hell of a lot.
What's the first thing comes to mind?
Well, there's a big crowd of it coming. Give me a minute. What can you... I want to say La Partenza, but it's not us.
A song by. Sorry, you might not have heard me. A song by a musician or artist, band that you admire or are inspired by.
I know exactly what he means. Yeah, he wants to play La Partenza. I know he does.
Yeah, I would like to play. It's an Alan Lomax recording of a bunch of about 10 to 12 longshoremen from Genoa. Singing Leaving for Paris, it's called. What you do, you will find it. You will find La Partenza, Partenza, and the group is called, and the music is called Tralalero.
My name is Bold Doherty from the North Country, where there's a still upon every stream. Landlady, be quicker and bring us more liquor, and fill us a pitcher that's stronger than cream. If I had you, Molly, so pleasant and jolly, although it's a folly to ask you at all. But if I had a glass and a mile to the bottom, I'd drink to you, Molly, beside Donegal and sing Fol-de-rol day, Fol-de-rol laddity, Fol-de-rol day, laddity, Fol-de-rol day. Had a new pair of clogs I brought home from the market. I wanted an excuse for to go to the town. I told me old mother the seams they were ripped, and I needed some nails for to rivet them round. She clothed me hand with a bright golden shilling. She thought the remainder it would be her own. She says when you go to town you may buy half a noggin, but be sure you leave all of them fancifuls home. Fol-de-rol day, Fol-de-rol laddity, Fol-de-rol day, laddity, Fol-de-rol crossing the hills of me brave and a skillin', I went to an alehouse for to take a dram. There I saw two tinkers dividing the saucepan, although they were arguing about a tin can. Then one of them made such a blow to the other and said, you old villain, I will take your life, for your saucepans are leaking and can't hold the water. Since Savable Doherty spoke to your wife and sang Fol-de-rol day, Fol-de-rol laddity, Fol-de-rol day, laddity, Fol-de-rol day. And when I got home, well, the door it was bolted. I wrapped up my mother for to let me in. Be gone from the place where the words that she mentioned, for inside this door you will not enter in. You may go away to wherever you came from, but to keep you out now I'm sure 'tis no sin. I said, me good woman, you can keep your temper, and I can get lodgings with Nora Woodwin and sing Fol-de-rol day, Fol-de-rol laddity, Fol-de-rol day, laddity, Fol-de-rol day.
Je suis un homme de bon vivant.
Mon père, savez-vous la façon?
La vie n'est belle qu'en chantant, j'ai la maladie de la chanson.
La vie n'est belle qu'en chantant, j'ai la maladie de la chanson.
J'ai toute la langue à tatiner.
Mon père, savez-vous le moyen?
Et d'avoir tout le temps trop surluté, j'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
D'avoir tout le temps trop surluté, j'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
J'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Je suis un homme de bon vivant.
Mon père, savez-vous la façon?
La vie n'est belle qu'en chantant, j'ai la maladie de la chanson.
La vie n'est belle qu'en chantant, j'ai la maladie de la chanson.
J'ai la maladie de la chanson, j'ai toute la langue à tatiner.
Mon père, savez-vous le moyen?
D'avoir tout le temps trop surluté, j'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
D'avoir tout le temps trop surluté, j'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
J'ai la bouche en forme de refrain.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Quand j'étais bibliothécaire,
mon père, savez-vous la misère?
Surtout quand j'étais dans l'armée, je nous faisais toujours repérer.
Surtout quand j'étais dans l'armée, je nous faisais toujours repérer.
Je nous faisais toujours repérer.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Je vous raconte pas de quoi ça avait l'air.
Mon père, savez-vous les tracteurs?
À l'école ou au cinéma, aucun ami ne m'accepta.
Aucun ami ne m'accepta. Sans cesse je lire, je m'égosille, je n'arrête jamais de chanter.
Mais c'est pas pire avec les filles, elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
Si je suis quand même heureux dans la vie, c'est bien grâce à ma belle chérie.
C'est bien grâce à ma belle chérie. C'est quand elle m'offre ses lèvres douces, c'est mieux que de la musique à bouche.
Si je suis malade éternellement, c'est que j'aime son médicament.
Savez-vous la misère? Savez-vous la façon? Savez-vous les tracas? De quoi j'avais l'air? Savez-vous la misère? Elles sont toujours prêtes à danser.
La paratesa.
Wow.
Brilliant. I loved that.
Great choices. We've heard Bold Dirty from their 2013 eponymous album by Waterson Carthy on the Topic Records label, followed by Mon Perret by Québécois folk band La Boutine Souriante from their 2011 album Appellation d'origine contrôlée on Borealis Records.
I'll tell you what, Nick, those French lessons you took at school had really paid off there.
Followed by the Alan Lomax recording of the Trallieri of Genoa with La Partenza.
Finally, we end this marathon with an interview with festival organiser and Folk Room co-founder Stephen Thomas, who we briefly spoke to after the last act had played, and we were all quite exhausted, weren't we, Nick?
Absolutely knackered.
We really were. Nick asked Stephen what the importance was in putting on Brighton and Hove Folk Festival and what his message was to folk music fans.
Probably the biggest part, actually, the more I think about it, is I just want to share the music I really like. Just now, you're saying the acts you enjoyed most were Patch and the Giant and Sophie Jameson. That's possibly the best answer you could have given for me, because those are two acts who have been working specifically with Folk Room for coming on 10 years now. Both of those acts put out their first EP on our record label. Sophie Jameson has just been signed to Bella Union, so she's going to be seen and heard around the world very soon, I hope. But that's what I get out of a lot of this, which is getting to hear great music that other people might not yet know and making sure that a few more people do hear them. Live music has been struggling for a while, and we put on shows that have been not filled in the way they were before the pandemic. So that's my focus right now, is to build back up what we had before the pandemic and bring people back out to shows. So that's the takeaway. If you see a show and you're considering going, go. It's probably not going to take a lot out of your wallet, and it will support artists, it will support promoters who then get to show you more new artists. Go to gigs. That's the message there.
Thanks to Stephen for granting us access to all 15 artists and bands at the festival. We look forward to returning next year.
Radio Lewes. Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.
Hi, I'm Fern Maddie, and you're listening to Finding Land Folk Show on Radio Lewes, where music matters.
How exciting!
Oh, Nick, is this the little surprise you have for us?
That was Fern Maddie.
It was.
That was the voice of the amazing Fern Maddie, whose self-released album Ghost Story charted at number 4 on our own recent Album of the Year awards and made number 2 on The Guardian's Best Folk Albums of 2022.
Absolutely. Shared good taste there.
Absolutely. And our surprise news is that we have made contact with Fern and offered her the chance to tell us about her upcoming tour.
I just wanted to let you know that I will be on tour in the UK from January 18th to February 10th. I'll be playing at the Imbolc Festival in Derry, Northern Ireland, and also at Celtic Connections in Glasgow, Scotland, along with many other dates throughout England. I'll also be sharing the stage for several nights with 2 other very talented singer-songwriters, Flo Perlin and Daisy Shute. You can find all the dates and ticket links at my website, fernmaddiemusic.com. That's Fern, F-E-R-N, Maddie, M-A-D-D-I-E, music.com. I'm really excited to get over there and play my songs for you in person. I hope to see you at a show.
In addition, Finding Land Folk Show will be interviewing Maddie. Nick, we're interviewing her.
I know.
Because she's coming to Brighton, so we will be interviewing her on her Brighton leg of the tour. So to mark this occasion, we asked Fern to pick 2 of her album tracks to share with us and 1 from an artist or band she admires. Back over to Fern.
I'd love to introduce you to my version of Hares on the Mountain, the traditional English ballad about courtship and being pursued. I love the dark country vibe that came together on this track. If you enjoy the song, you should have a watch of the music video I made for it. It was filmed and edited entirely by myself and my partner, using old archival footage from around the world.
Oh, Sally, my dear, it's you I'd be kissing. Oh, Sally, my dear, it's you I'd be kissing.
Sally, my dear, I wish I could wed you. Oh, Sally, my dear, I wish I could bed you. She smiled and replied, then you'd say I've misled you.
Another track I'm very proud of is You Left This. You Left This is an original song written for and about my father, who was an amazing pianist and composer. He died when I was 21. There's actually a sample of his piano playing on the track. In the last instrumental section, you can hear a loop of him playing woven in with the rest of the instruments. I hope you enjoy.
In my hands, you left this in my hands. Dark door closing on your plans. You left this in my hands. You left this in my feet. You left this in my feet. Dark door closing where we meet. You left this in my feet. You left this in my chest.
my chest.
I'd like to introduce one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite folk groups, Lady Misery. This song isn't from 2022, but I think it's a lovely song for the end of the year, when we can revisit all that we've lost and feel the grief and celebration of endings. The song is called Order and Chaos, and I can never listen to it without weeping.
Gather round, for time is turning. This part of my story is closing. As the hour draws near, I wonder, not fear, at the journey that I will be taking. I might be in the beat of a wing, might be in the rush of a river, but as yet, I'll always be here through springtime to wintry weather. Lay me down, set me free. Oh, part of this world I'll still be. You'll not find me in order but chaos, as I follow the path that time makes us. I'll leave you the light from the sun, every beam that fell on my face. Photons and waves, the paths that we've changed, they have all left a mark on this place. And I'll leave you the warmth of my skin that floats our soaring hearts. Nothing's lost, nothing's found, it all just moves round and keeps us from falling apart. Lay me down, set me free. Oh, part of this world I'll still be. You'll not find me in order but chaos, as I follow the path that time makes us. I'll leave you the stars from the sky, both our future and past yet to come. But as all things must turn back to dust, then I'll glint in the afternoon sun. We're all made from the same as the earth, and someday we'll roam it together. Particles gliding, dancing, colliding, we'll wander entangled forever. Lay me down, set me free. Oh, part of this world I'll still be. You'll not find me in order but chaos, as I follow the path that time makes us. Lay me down, set me free. Oh, part of this world I'll still be. You'll not find me in order but chaos, as I follow the path that time makes us.
Thanks so much to Fern Maddie, and we look forward to interviewing you soon. As we near the end of our show, Hannah and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of our listeners who have joined our podcast journey since we started just 7 months ago. It has been a real pleasure to share our love of folk with such an appreciative audience. Our only ask of you is to help us spread the word and encourage more people to follow us across our social media platforms.
Absolutely. We would also like to thank all of the artists who have participated in some way in the show, especially those we have interviewed, and thank you for your trust in a small local start-up project. In particular, we'd like to thank Eliza, Angeline and Fiona, who have highlighted our work beyond episodes in which they have appeared.
Finally, we'd like to thank our friends and partners, Brighton-based promoters Melting Vinyl and Portslade Micropub, The Foghorn, for their support. We look forward to our work together in 2023.
Whatever your relationship with the show, as a listener, as a musician, please feel free to drop us a line at findinglandfolkshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your views, your requests, your submissions and your ideas.
And if you have any questions for Fern Maddie, drop us a line.
Yes, do.
In the meantime, we are off for a brief break to work on some of our own music and help support a Radio Lewes relaunch. So we wish you well in the next few weeks, and we will see you again on Valentine's Day.
Oh, so romantic. What are you getting me, Nick?
As we approach the old 12y night of wassailing to sing to the health of trees and orchards in the hope of a fruitful harvest, what better way to end the show with the Watersons and Here We Come A-Wassailing. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Here we come a-wassailing among the leaves of green. Here we come a-wandering so fairly to be seen. Now is winter time, strangers travel far and near, and we wish you, send you a happy new year. Bud blossom, bud bloom and bear, so we may have plenty of cider all next year. Hatfuls and in capfuls and in bushel bags and all, and the cider running out of every gutter hole. Down here in the muddy lane there sits an old red fox, starving and a-shivering and licking his old chops. Bring us out your table and spread it if you please, and give us hungry wassailers a bit of bread and cheese. I've got a little purse and it's made of leather skin, a little silver sixpence, it'd line it well within. Now is winter time, strangers travel far and near, and we wish you, send you a happy new year.
Radio Lewes. Local community webcasting.